With all of the crazy stuff that's going on in the world these days, more and more people are feeling anxious, alone, and unfulfilled with modern life and are seeking something greater. To feel more connected, to cure an emptiness that they can't seem to fill with things they buy. In this seeking, many are turning to spirituality or religion as a pathway to a deeper connection. In this episode, we're talking about the differences between spirituality and religion, and the potential limitations of both. We'll address how much more they overlap than we think, and the most efficient pathway to your own unique experience of the divine. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part. The group frequency calibration associated with this episode is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So definitely listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. If you know someone who could use help with this, please share this video with them. And comment below if there was an aha moment for you, or if there's something you'd like to add. My name is Karen Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're discussing spirituality and religion.
So we're going to have a discussion today about, it's funny, the title, spirituality versus religion, or we're just going to talk about what we think spirituality is compared to religion.
Yeah.
Because clearly I'm not religious. I don't have the academic understanding of what religion is. I've had my experience, personal experience with many people from many different religions. I've also had experience with many different spiritual groups and people that classify themselves as being spiritual.
Yes.
And I have to say, I'm going to put my hand up. I don't see that much difference between the two.
Yeah.
Yes, there is this deep desire within myself and lots of my friends and the people that I've met in the past to have this intimate connection with something much greater than us, or the creator of everything, you know, whatever you want to call it. And yes, there have been some pretty profound teachings, but in the same way, I've seen rehearsed and very structured ways of being told how to have this connection. Or the opposite, you are not worthy of because you were born in sin. Therefore, you will never have that intimate personal connection.
Yeah.
So, like, where do you want to go with this one?
Yeah, I know. Totally. Well, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of confusion. Well, first of all, what I'm going to say is it's a time of seeking. So a lot of people in our modern culture have started to feel sort of that anxiety, the loneliness, the worry and the stress of when you don't have some kind of connection to the divine.
Yeah.
I've been seeing that a lot in people, this sort of anxiety, and it causes, you know, a breakdown emotionally in people because they're starting to seek something else because they can't find it. And so to me, you know, as you said, like I'm certainly not an expert in religions, period. And I'm certainly not an expert exactly in spirituality, although I've been able to interact with people in both camps.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because to me, spirituality has like sort of evolved in reaction to religion.
Yes.
You know, because the religions that were really at play, you know, at the time of my grandparents, even my parents, were like, that was your choice.
Yeah.
You know, like that was what you did in order to have a connection to the divine. And if you didn't do that, then there was going to be some terrible consequence to the family or yourself. So, you know, like the church, however you experience that, whether it was a temple, a church, you know, a mosque, whatever, it was like, that is what you did, you know, in order to have that connection with the divine. So I feel like spirituality came to some degree in reaction to religion, and religion where it was, you know, a lot of rules, a lot of dogma, a lot of this is the way you should be, and if you're not, then, you know, you're basically unfavored by God, and then you will be like basically go to the hell realms or whatever it is, however that religion spoke about it, or whatever that religion defined it as. And I feel like spirituality shifted away in a way where it was like a curiosity about the connection to the divine, where it was like, is there a way for me to connect to the divine that isn't what is prescribed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like by whatever religion it is. And I think that a lot of people started to question the hypocrisy that they saw in religion. So there's a lot of like rules about how you're supposed to be charitable, love thy neighbor, do all these things, right? That you're supposed to do to be a good fill in the blank religious person.
Yeah.
But yet, like what was espoused, you know, when you went to whatever institution, like church, mosque, whatever, wasn't actually how people lived.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Now, I can hear a lot of folk in the audience probably saying, well, that's not the religion, though. That's the people.
Yes.
I used to hear my father-in-law say that. The religion is beautiful. It's the people that mess it up.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing about spirituality.
Yeah.
You know, so the reason why I'm coming circling around here is you said it was in reaction to religion. Now I can also hear a lot of the yogis out there saying,
Yeah.
you know, we had the yogi spirituality path way before all you, and they're right.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember reading the Bhagavad Gita, and you know, when Arjuna finally meets God on the battlefield, and God says, "You can't handle me," you know, because I'm not who you think I am. You know, that moment. So I can imagine that the people are going to be saying, "But that's not religion. That's human. That's humanness." So, and that's why you need religion.
Yeah. So I feel like it's interesting because in all of these different traditions, it's really, you know, especially with religion, you know, because even like the yogi tradition is like influenced by Hinduism, right? Which is where it like was birthed from.
Yeah.
And so all of these things, like you said, have to do with her human distortion.
Yeah.
Because originally, let's go back
to
the seat of religion has to do with a person. In most of these religions, it's usually a man who has some kind of experience, which is powerful and transcendent. And he starts to communicate that, okay, in what he teaches and what he shares in an effort to uplift others.
Yes.
Okay. And this has happened for time immemorial.
Yes.
Not all prophets have been elevated to create religions, but there have been many like this.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that that seed of that connection to the divine, and however that person experienced it, and whatever they're teaching, starts to distort, right?
Yeah.
So it starts to pick up speed, meaning more and more people start to believe it. And then it oddly starts to shift in a way because it becomes about power. And in that distortion, then there are all these other things that start to happen, which is like, well, that person who originally had that experience is now dead.
Yeah.
Right? So we can't ask him how it all went down in his experience. So now people interpret his experience, which is already an interpretation of his experience. And then it kind of gets distorted and it becomes about power. And then it becomes about rules and about prescription and how you have to be and how you should act. And if you're not, then you're sinning and all this sort of stuff, right? So it becomes really, really distorted. And to me, there's a certain like rule set around religion, whatever the religion is, about how you should be in order to be further connected to the divine.
Yes.
And so your father-in-law was right in the sense that the original teachings are often of a higher frequency resonance.
Yeah.
True statement.
Yeah.
What happens after is the mess that can happen with religion and oppression and power.
Yeah.
And
which is the humanness.
Which is the humanness. And I think at this point for many religions, because there's so much oppression woven into the power structure of religions, that's the reaction against it. It's like, I don't want to be necessarily oppressed, and I don't necessarily feel like I need this institution to have a connection with the divine.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily feel like I was born in sin.
Yes.
You know,
or less than,
or that, and now I have to spend the rest of my life being worthy.
Yes.
Or having a little piece of crumb off the table of God.
Yes,
or
exactly.
divine, or creator, or whatever. Fill in that blank.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting because I think this also runs through spirituality and has to do with the seeking that we have. Fundamentally, I feel like most humans feel like the divine is outside of them.
Yeah.
They don't feel worthy of the divine. Like they themselves inherently are not worthy. And therefore, they are always less than and need to somehow do something in order to reach the divine in some way.
Yeah.
And it's quite a radical thing to say that the divine is within you. And I'm not saying that you are God, okay? So please know that I did not say that you are God. Okay, I said that the divine is inherently within you. It's what animates you. There's an aspect of you that is divine. There is an aspect of you that is infinite, indestructible consciousness. You are both human and spirit. And that's quite a radical thing, because a lot of people will say, well, no, you know, you're not good enough to be that. I'm like, it is inherently you. It is what animates you.
That's right. You're not alive unless you have it.
Exactly.
That's it, the end.
Exactly.
You know?
And I feel like, you know, a lot of the kids who are born, like what I call the new consciousness kids, they know that.
Yeah.
They know that about themselves. And yes, they have their own things to work through, but they have more of a feeling of this connection that is inherently them, and that they are not sullied, you know, that they're not less than. I'm not saying they don't have their own human path, because they do. But that is, for those of us who are not those new consciousness kids and are on this path of awakening, it's for us truly to recognize that we are beloved exactly as we are. And, you know, I say that casually, but it is such a hard thing for people.
Yep. You're not allowed to be human.
Yeah.
With a lot of religions that I've experienced and had the privilege of watching these people work so hard to be worthy.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's hard when you're in their company not to feel kind of slightly ashamed.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And yet I have the audacity to know, no, this is how I was made.
Yeah.
And why would the creator of all things decide that I'm not worthy, since he created me in the first place?
Exactly.
You know?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And so I kind of wondered, for me, is that the difference between spirituality and religion? That I'm at peace in the knowing that I was created this way by creator, therefore I wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And why would creator not think I'm worthy?
Yeah.
I mean, he made me.
Yeah.
She, it, they, whatever pronoun.
Yeah.
It's habit for me to say he. He made me this way.
Yeah. It's interesting that as humans, how we try to personify, or what do they call it? You know, when you anthropomorphize, make the divine a human. Okay, I just make this really clear. That consciousness, which is extraordinarily highly vibrating and which created everything, including you, is not human. Okay, it's very, very high resonance. And so therefore it doesn't have our emotions, it doesn't have our thoughts, it doesn't have our like shame, it doesn't have any of that. It's neutral. It doesn't have like our, you know what I mean? How we judge things good, bad, and different, whatever. It just is. And so I think it's a very hard thing for people to understand, because we try to make that thing that we call the divine a human. It's not human.
And perfect.
Yes, exactly. And so we think that it's human and perfect. It is neither of those things. It is a very, very highly vibrating consciousness. And so that's another thing with the deification of, you know, a godhead, that it is human. When it's my experience of it is it's not. It's a very high resonance, and it doesn't have judgment in the way that many of the religious texts have it. You know, like you are sinful, or there's a wrathful God, or there isn't a wrathful God, or it's a benevolent God. It is neither. It is neutral. So what unfolds is unfolding. It's life unfolding, and there's no judgment of that life. And I say that because there's so much like trying to reach an aspect of perfection, because we ourselves and our humanness are flawed.
Yeah.
Now, you are human, and you are flawed, and you are messy, and you came into the embodiment to experience that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will judge that as like bad.
Yeah.
Or wrong, or insufficient.
Right. So there's a couple of things I'd love to come in at with that, because if I'm one of them people that has that drive, that propulsion to believe that, then they say, but I'm not religious. How have I got that? Right. That's one thing.
Which?
That I'm not worthy. That you know, I'm not good enough, and that I need to be perfect, and I need to do all these things to be perfect. You know, if I'm propelled that way, but I'm not religious. What do you say to those people? Yeah.
So to me, it depends if are they seekers? Are they seeker types still?
I don't know. They probably are. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it to themselves, right? To attain that perfection.
Yeah. So they're a part of it. Well, I mean, there's a number of reasons for that. So some of you have the memory of what it is to be infinite indestructible consciousness, and you are desperately trying to remember who you truly are.
Yeah.
And so it's really, to me, it's less about perfection, but like striving to like to be in that connection that you know is there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you're seeking for it. You know that it's there, and you can feel it sometimes, but it's elusive, and you're not sure really how to get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, that is that knowingness of who you are at a much higher level order of vibration that you and your humanness are striving to remember. And so this goes back to the fall through the veil of forgetting that you and I have spoken about before. So when you incarnate, you have to drop in your vibration in order to become physical, in order to be density or form or have a body at all.
Yeah.
And so in order to do that, to have the experience of the humanness, you drop in vibration through what I call the veil of forgetting, which is when you forget two things. One is that you're infinite and indestructible consciousness. You feel that you're alone and you're separate. You're in that illusion. And the other thing is that you forget that there is something called the eternal now, which is that everything that's happening on spirit level is really all happening all at once.
Yeah.
And so we believe that there's something called linear time. So when you drop through the veil of forgetting and you believe that you are separate and you are finite, it's like you go to sleep. You know, this is a massive forgetting. You've just forgotten that you are part of the infinite oneness and that you are incredibly valuable and intricate in that oneness. There is no oneness without you.
Yeah.
You are inherently part of it. And so the people who seek for that connection are like, I know that it's there, but I don't know what that means exactly. And I don't know what that looks like. And I don't know what that feels like, but I know that I want it again. So that to me is part of that wanting to become awake. To me, part of the awakening is to pierce that veil of forgetting, to recognize that you are that infinite, indestructible consciousness. Part of you is. Part of you is also human. And so that's what that drive is. You're like, and it's less, I think as you go along the path, as people go along, for some of us, we realize, wait a minute, it's not about the perfection thing.
Yes, because I was going to say, that's my next point, because, you know, there's all these steps that you have to take or be or do to have this connection that you are never really allowed to have.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But it's the same with spirituality.
Yeah.
And they have all these ways of doing things to get closer to that thing that they're trying to attain. I'm trying to be completely nebulous because the thing you're trying to attain, we don't really understand it really fully, but we know, like you said, something in us remembers.
Yeah.
So I want you to come back to the point where you don't really have to do anything, or the opposite, where you have to do all these things.
Yes.
But somewhere in the middle of that too, you do have to do something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So as you say, if I can, to me, what I heard you say is that with spirituality, there's been a muddying, right? So I feel like spirituality is simply the quest to understand the divine, to reconnect with the divine in some way.
Yes.
Okay? To me, that's what spirituality is.
Yeah.
And spirituality has, depending on what path you follow, can get kind of muddy and look a lot like religion, where it's like you have the rule sets and the dogma, and that you are not perfect and you have to be perfect in a different way in order to have that connection.
Yes, exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing is, how do you have that connection without the dogma?
Yeah.
And can you?
Yes. And knowing that you actually still do, at the end of the day, have to do something different.
Yes, exactly.
Or you'll never have the different thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, no, it's true. So that's why for me anyway, when we start NEGFC, the question is, how do I become more aware of my connection only to pure source? Because let me say this really clearly, you are always connected to pure source. Always. It's within you. It's irrevocable. It is constantly there. You can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
What is different for different people is their awareness of it.
Yes.
Okay. So the thing is, in order to be aware of that connection to pure source even more, it's about clearing out the distortion that we have, that we are not worthy, that we need to be perfect, that we are ashamed, that we are not worthy. Like all this stuff that comes from religion, from not just one, all of them, from your lineages, meaning your ancestors, your cultures that all tell you you're not worthy, that it's not inherent within you, that you got to do something else to connect.
Yeah.
All that stuff is all packed on in there, right?
Yeah.
In these layers and layers of distortion. So as you say, do you have to do something to increase your awareness? Yeah. You got to release your distortion patterns in order to experience that awareness more and more clearly. It's like you're looking at it's that connection is always there, but you've got all these different layers of stuff between you and it. It's not that it's not there. It's just that you're not seeing it. Or you're looking at it through all these distortions. So it's like, okay, well, once you start releasing the distortions, you're like, oh, well, geez, that was always there. I just wasn't aware of it. Yeah, exactly. So you do have to do something. To me, this is the wonderful thing about this time. Consciousness is rising, and we get to rise in consciousness if we choose to. Okay, not everyone's going to choose to. That's okay. It might be frustrating for some of us, but that's what's happening. But the thing is, we're at this point where we can be in this realization that we have the authority to release our distortion patterns. And that awareness is not that it's missing, it just needs to be clarified.
Yeah. I mean, I only know the Christian side of religion, or no, its variations of Christianity. And I do recall at some point Jesus saying that we are all like him. We all inherently have everything that he has. You know, somewhere in the past, I can hear some minister saying this. And spirituality says the exact same thing. You know, that it's all within us, but like I say, they seem to humanness gets in the way, and they seem to follow the same path, just under a different umbrella.
Exactly.
So neither of them are wrong, and neither of them are right.
Yes.
But I think one works on a remembering of something that happened in the past, whereas spirituality seems to be, no, this is now. This is happening now. We need to do this now. It's there for us now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that, as you say, like, and as we've been talking about, spirituality can get muddy depending on, like, people follow different kinds of paths. Yeah. And, and I think that what falls under the umbrella of spirituality has been things like, different like indigenous beliefs or different traditions that are not necessarily our own or whatnot. And so there's all kinds of beliefs out there. And, they're, like you said, they're not exactly right and they're not exactly wrong either. Yeah. But a lot of them are reflections of a human distortion. Yeah. Right? The need to control, the need to have power, the need to oppress, the need to be right, the need to be all this sort of stuff. Yeah. Right? And it's an interesting soup that we're in as humans with regards to our connection to the divine. Ultimately, my feeling is that this is a time where we can move into a higher level of freedom, of liberation, for us to be like, okay, this is a very personal thing. Yeah. My connection to the divine is perpetual and infinite. Yeah. And how I clarify that, experience it, am aware of it, is extremely personal and intimate to me.
Yeah, and how much of it do I want is dependent on how much of it I'm prepared to do that work.
Exactly.
Right? It's not because some guru tells me, okay, now you're worthy of the next level. Yeah. Or a priest says, okay, you've done enough martyrdom or sacrificial tasks, you can now enter the next level. Yeah. It's solely based on how much do I want to really have this deeper, more expansive understanding of my true, indestructible consciousness.
Yeah, exactly.
I always get that wrong.
Yeah.
And my divine inherent birthright connection with the creator that created everything, is dependent on how much inner work I want to do. Yes. Like, how much do I want to clear?
Yeah, exactly. How much do I want to clear the filters that prevent me from feeling, being aware of, and knowing my connection to the divine, which is always there. Yeah. And that's the thing. And it's such a beautiful time because there are many people who want that answer. Yes. And there are many people who are like, I'm willing to do that work, because in that clarity, there is something that can't ever be forgotten. This aspect of myself. And the thing is, it's funny because the way the awakening is sort of portrayed is sort of like you all of a sudden enter awakening and then like the clouds part and the angels sing and your life is always glorious and you smell like perfume all the time. And you know what I mean? Like you never fart again or whatever it is.
You fart?
Right? I mean, it's ridiculous. And there's all these ideas like, spirituality is very serious. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, you're not allowed to laugh at life.
I know.
No.
Or spirituality or yourself or your humanness or your connection, like whatever. It's all very, very serious. And that's just kind of silly. Because the funny thing is the more that you clarify and the more your resonance rises and the more you're aware of your connection to divine, life becomes very funny.
Yeah.
And you become very funny. And humanness becomes very funny.
Hilarious.
Yeah, it's really funny. And it's like easy to laugh at things and it's easy to laugh at life. And the really wonderful thing is like, even if you look at someone like the Dalai Lama, he's very serious because he's a very smart man. He's very learned. He's done his stuff. But he's also very quick to laugh. He's like a little kid sometimes. And it's really wonderful to watch. And to me, it's the ones who are very pedantic, it's like, you need to be doing this and you have sinned and you should be doing this, that, and the other thing. And they will be punished and they will not. Like, it's very serious. It's like, okay, well, it's like their ego mind is very vested in looking like they are awake or sacred or you know what I mean, like loved by God, or whatever it is.
It's and let's come back to spirituality side of that one as well. I'd love to. I remember meeting a shaman years ago, and my idea as a shaman, they had the feather headdress on, and the crystals, and they had the big special stick with the eagle's head on.
Totally.
Oh, you could tell they were a shaman. And they might have had some special skills that were really charismatic and attractive and like, he's got the answers. And I remember meeting this guy. He just had a t-shirt on. It was like a kind of half-ripped t-shirt. And, and long jeans and he was a bit scruffy looking. And he was watching everything. And he was an Aboriginal shaman. And he said, you're human. Yeah. That's your spirituality. Yeah. You can have the feathers and the plumes if you want. I mean, good on you. But he said, no, you're human. That's your spirituality. Go down to the river. Talk to the river. Go to the trees. Talk to the trees. That's your spirituality. Yeah. There's none of this foof foof. You call it foof foof. I don't need the foof foof. And I remember the time thinking, oh, come on.
Where's my incense bowl?
I know. I have to have all the, the bling bling. And it's only been, in the last few years, it's like, oh, wow. And I have a recollection of a conversation with a guy I met years ago, didn't believe in any of that spirituality or religion. He said, my religion is nature. And at the time I was like, oh, okay. But now more so than ever, I get it. It's like, oh, yeah, God, pure source, creator of all this, it's everywhere. Not in behind some pearly gates, not in some ivory tower, absolutely everywhere. Yeah. So how could we not be part of it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a funny thing because I think with, there's a lot of emphasis on like sacred items. Yeah. Like the bones of somebody or other, or
that freaks me out now.
Yeah, I know. The bones of somebody other, or this special holder, or the whatever. And then I'm not saying there's certain things that don't have higher vibrational level, because there are. Yeah. But but what happens in that focus is you forget the sacredness of all things, and that that life in itself is sacred. And how it expressed. And so and I'm sure a lot of people will be very upset and be like, how is everything sacred when there's war and there is abuse and then there is oppression and there is, people doing horrible things. And that is the unfolding of life. And it's, in our humanness, I'm not saying it's good, by the way. No. What I'm saying is that is the expression of the lower vibrating order of our humanness. Yes. And part of what we're here for is as we rise in our consciousness level, as we rise in our frequency resonance, that starts to be something we don't want to create more of. We want to create something else because we also start to recognize our authority as co-creator of everything. Now, we all are very different. So what we co-create and we choose to co-create is very different. And that's what's beautiful too.
Thank God.
I know. And so it's an interesting thing. I feel like with both spirituality and religion, in a way, we're moving to this place where we come into this authority of our own knowingness of who we truly are. And I'm not saying that you can't have community in different places, because that's that's necessary and helpful for humans on many different levels.
Yeah.
And ultimately, for me, the path to whatever it is that you're seeking is truly a remembering of who you are.
Yeah.
And that awareness of that connection to pure source.
Yeah.
Really, that's it. Because how you experience that, how you express that is going to be completely unique to you.
And I would like to add, if that's okay, again, he must be here today. My father-in-law, he always used to say, it didn't matter to him what you did to have that connection to pure source, whether he used religion or whether he used whatever you used, but as long as it made you feel and be a better person, then how could it be wrong?
Yeah.
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 That was his words. You know,
Yeah.
they were really simple. Like, yeah, it's true, actually. It doesn't matter if it's religion or if it's spirituality or if it's a pineapple.
Yeah.
You know, if it makes you move inside to want to become a better person in whatever way you can do that, you know, and be a kinder person, a more community-based person, you know, to hold a resonance that allows other people to want to do that, then how can that be bad?
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think the thing is, it's funny because I think as humans, whatever side you fall on the spectrum, spirituality, religion, whatever, we judge like the external trappings of it, you know, like how it is that you are and what it is that you do, etc. But to me, it's all really about your resonance level, right? Just because you're part of religion doesn't necessarily mean that your resonance needs to be low. Yeah. You could be resonating very high.
Exactly.
And you could be in, you know, spirituality or whatever, and your resonance be high. To me, like what you were talking about, like the kindness, all that stuff happens when your resonance rises.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So really, whatever the trappings are is not really important.
No.
What it is about...
What's it doing for you?
Well, yeah. And about your own awareness of your connection to pure source, really, ultimately. And when your resonance rises, what's amazing is that how you behave and how you see other people and your perspective will shift. Yeah. And that's really the important thing. So I feel like we're moving into a time where we don't need to define it so much for everybody else. Yeah. You know, I mean, like what you do, that's your thing. And really it's about focus within, because it's not about selfishness. It's more about the knowingness that as your resonance rises and as this knowingness clarifies, that you have a ripple effect into consciousness, which allows others to do the same and to define that for themselves from a higher level order of frequency resonance, and to explore that and to be it. And it's not about negating your humanness. No. It's about like seeing the beauty of life, your own expression of it, your own fallibility, and your own glory too, as this higher aspect. So that's really, I feel like, where we're moving into, and the definition of those two things become less, meaning spirituality and religion, become unimportant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we really need to talk about what we're going to do in the GFC now.
Yeah.
We could talk this one to death.
Yeah, we could.
You know, and I'm sure there'll be people that would love to comment after this episode. You know, and I'd love to see some comments. You know, what they think the difference is, or is it important, or is there a delineation between the two? I mean, it'd be interesting. Yeah. But ultimately, the GFC is the really thing. What we want to.
Yeah. And I think it's important that even in defining these things of spirituality and religion, to notice if you have a need to feel better than those things. Yeah. That's a very human thing. And, you know, that's a tendency that people can slip into when it comes to spirituality. Like, I am better than them. Whatever camp you fall into, honestly, to be aware of that distortion pattern, because that ultimately will drop your resonance, because it's a form of arrogance, really. Yeah. You know, and so in any case, for this GFC, that's actually what we're going to work on, which has to do with the need to feel right or better than someone else, because we ourselves fundamentally feel not enough. Yeah.
Nice one.
So for those of you who would like to create some separation from all the stories and the dogma and the need to feel right, all that sort of stuff, and to start to feel that connection for yourself of your own infinite, indestructible consciousness, your own inherent connection to the oneness, then I highly recommend listening to the GFC that's associated with this episode. And if you've liked this episode, please hit the like button and subscribe. We're about to start the Group Frequency Calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear on the right or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.